In this course, we will focus on blocking the membrane, which occurs before the primary antibody incubation step. If you remember the previous course on drying the membrane, we recommend drying the membrane completely after transfer. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've always been told to not dry our membranes during transfer and do everything in our power to keep them wet the entire Western blot protocol. I thought this suggestion was a little bit crazy when I first heard it also. But after trying it, I realized that drying the membrane results in a higher signal at the end of the Western blot protocol. This is because it allows the proteins to bind tightly to the membrane and prevents protein loss. It also results in lower background. When you are ready to proceed with the Western blot protocol, the membrane must be re-wet prior to blocking. For nitrocellulose, the membrane can be briefly rinsed in either TBS or PBS and then placed directly in the blocking solution. For PVDF, the membrane must be reactivated in 100% methanol for 1 minute with agitation. The membrane can be briefly rinsed, then briefly incubated in either TBS or PBS before proceeding with the blocking step. Before we block our membrane, it is important to understand why this step is essential in the Western blot protocol. Once you have transferred the proteins from the gel to the membrane, there are empty spaces on the membrane where no proteins are bound. Blocking the membrane fills the empty spaces not already occupied by your target protein and other proteins from the lysate. This prevents the nonspecific binding of primary and secondary antibodies to the membrane. Nonspecific binding of antibodies will mask the signal from your protein of interest, reducing both specificity and sensitivity. Blocking the membrane allows us to detect specific binding of the antibody to your protein of interest. This ultimately improves the signal-to-noise ratio of the assay by reducing background. High background is a common problem with Western blots, so blocking the membrane is an important step that should always be performed. Now that we understand the importance of the blocking step, we will talk about some of the common buffers used for blocking the membrane.